Sounds good. But yeah, so my first name is Vincent. My last name is Meraldo. What were the other questions regarding that?
How old are you and where you staying?
Okay, yeah, I'm 27 years old, and like where I'm staying, like I'm staying in Michigan. Is that specific enough?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
Michigan, Oregon, USA.
it's Michigan. Michigan is the state.
Okay.
United States is the country.
Okay. What's Oregon then? Oh, why is it in my head? Why did I make that association?
I don't know. I don't know where Oregon came from.
Is Oregon a state, a city within Michigan? What's the
I think Oregon is a city in Canada, if I
Oh,
remember right.
okay. That's bad. Okay.
That's all right.
Hey, that's so cool, man. You're 27. I'm 26, and even Hayden is 27. You all of us are almost
Yeah.
the same
Hmm.
age. And what was your first diagnosis, if I may ask that?
Yeah. My first diagnosis, my very first psychosis experience was in March of 2018, and I was diagnosed with psychosis NOS. I even got it written down in an app I use for my healthcare, so I could even reference that later. So
Okay. What's NOS? Not specific? Is that
yeah, not specific.
okay? How? But is it not drug-induced psychosis then?
Um, it wasn't labeled as drug-induced psychosis by medical professionals, but I
Right.
did smoke weed about a week before my first experience,
Right.
and yeah,
Okay. All right. So, okay, I'll just start with the questionnaire if you don't mind, because we're anyway going to talk about a lot of things, but in the sort of order that it comes.
okay,
Okay. So I'll start with the questions. Uh, these set of questions are about medication. Okay.
okay.
What were the perceived psychological and physical effects of the antipsychotic medication that you had to take?
Psychological and physical effects of the antipsychotics. So psychologically, I felt sleepier. I want to say, like my mind was slower, but not slowed down to an extent where I couldn't operate. Um, and physiologically, I gained weight, but I
Okay.
don't know if that's because the physiological effect might have been making me more hungry, and thus I would eat more. I don't know if it's because I was eating more or because of just the drug interacting with my gut biome. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Uh, do you think the side effects of psychiatric medication are underplayed? Are there any benefits of taking psychiatric medication? And are the benefits overplayed or underplayed?
So that's like three parts, and I don't remember all of them.
Okay.
Can we
So,
just start with the first
yeah,
part?
we'll just do part by part. Do you think the
Okay.
side effects of psychiatric medication are underplayed?
Side effects are underplayed.
Well, the fact that when they give you antipsychotic medication, they don't really
Mm,
dwell on the side effects a lot, and they do happen, but they don't tell you a lot about it. Is what I'm
yeah.
asking.
Okay. I get that. Yeah, I think they're underplayed because I wasn't expecting the uh, psychological or physiological effects, even though they told me that I might gain weight. I didn't know what that meant fully.
Yeah.
It's like they gave me the result, but not like the day-to-day experience of what I was gonna feel.
Yeah. Do you think there are any benefits of psychiatric medication?
Um, I think in some people who whose behavior is changed dramatically from their psychotic to their post antipsychotic medication regimen, I think that's beneficial. But for me, I still went into psychosis despite the medication. So for me, I would say no, it wasn't beneficial.
Okay. And okay, so if they were not beneficial, I mean, they are underplayed. Then I don't need to ask you the next question.
Yeah.
All right. On on removal of the intake, were there any withdrawal symptoms that you were facing?
Withdrawal symptoms, no. Mm-mm.
And were you encouraged by your psychiatrist to discontinue antipsychotics?
No.
Okay, so they didn't tell you like, okay, I'm gonna start giving you antipsychotic medication, and over a period of like say 5 months, I'm gonna taper it down, and you might not have to take it, for a longish period.
Yeah, I was just given prescriptions and told to take them, and I stopped taking them on my own direction, not on any psychiatrist or medical professional's direction.
All right. Okay. Do you think that a person with lived experience of mental illness is better equipped to work in the mental health field?
I do think so because it gives you that experience that you can draw upon. Like you could think about your own patterns of thoughts that you would have in that particular mental illness and think about what you might have been given to help that. And then you can then give that to the next
Right.
person.
In our particular case, Vincent, medical professionals, they often say that we have little insight into our condition. Do you agree with them? And could you please elaborate on that?
I do think they don't have much insight. Um, when I think about my own experiences with therapists and psychiatrists, with psychiatrists, it seemed like they were just trying to ask me a bunch of questions that seemed like it was coming from a place where they didn't understand. Like, I remember one time a psychiatrist was talking to me about my beliefs about my own special powers that I thought I had. And it kind of sounded like he was downplaying what I was going through, which, like, that's a delusion. I recognize that now. But at the time, it seemed like he was feeding into the delusion, despite the fact that he was fully intending to, like, reduce the delusion, if
So
that makes any sense.
he was being condescending yet encouraging you to talk about your delusion. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I kind of worded that incorrectly. He wasn't encouraging me, but the way that I interpreted it was an encouragement. He was not encouraging me, it was
Oh,
my
right, right,
interpretation.
right. But again, that's not your job, Vincent. Like that's his job to assess how you're gonna take it. I mean,
Yeah,
and then like give you, things that might like put you in a different direction altogether.
yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah.
mean, okay, I get it. Uh, well, do you feel the occurrence of a psychotic break is somehow related to feeling stifled by societal norms or tradition or culture or some code that you're meant to
Hmm.
follow?
Do I think it's triggered by societal norms? I don't think so. Um, yeah, I don't think so.
Like, okay, maybe. So, for example, what I'm trying to ask you is, do you feel the psychotic break could also be because you were being asked to conform in a lot of senses and you did not feel you fit in, and therefore, uh, like the way you're supposed to be and the way you're supposed to behave and the way like social interactions are supposed to go and all of that, like a pressure. For example, if you're a creative person and you want to maybe pursue music as a profession and people tell you no, that's you're not gonna earn money doing that. And did any of
Okay.
that ring a bell or not?
No. Going back to my memories, I can think of trying to fit in with the like Reddit groups that were all about spirituality.
Right.
So it wasn't me trying to get away from social norms. I was trying to fit into the social norm that I was a part of.
Right.
So,
Okay. All right, this one's an interesting question. So a lot of people look at people with psychotic disorders as suffering. Do you think psychotic people have a different understanding of their experiences, and would you also call it suffering?
um, at the time in the psychosis, I would not express it as suffering. I would express it as like intense happiness or intense connectedness. But looking back on it, I do see myself as suffering.
Right.
So in the experience, I do not see myself as suffering.
Right. Okay, but how does while you were experiencing it, you say it's an intense, euphoric experience almost, and when you're out of
Mhm.
it, why do you look at it as suffering? I mean, you did admit that I was not suffering and I was being
Yeah,
euphoric. So why do you have to look back
yeah,
and agree with the other people? Oh yeah, yeah, you were right. I was suffering, but you actually weren't
mhm,
right in the experience. Why do you say that?
yeah, yep. Because when I'm in the experience, I'm like believing lies that are true. Well, I'm believing lies that I think are true. And
Right.
looking back, I can see how believing lies is just in general really bad and suffering. So
Okay.
it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, Vincent. Uh, do you think there is something wrong with our approach towards recovery for a psychotic person? Like, are there spaces that are accommodating for a psychotic person?
Can you repeat that second part of the question?
Uh, are there spaces that are accommodating for a psychotic person?
Okay.
So while you were
Um,
in,
s-
yeah,
so I think that the general medical field isn't really equipped to handle psychosis. And I think that an area that I feel would be really helpful would be taking me out of a mental institution where there are other mentally ill people and placing me with like normal, healthy, uh, psychologically healthy like healthy people, and having someone having like a therapist talk with me directly,
right,
and having a therapist that is more Jungian based, because I think the aspect of archetypes is important in a psychosis.
right. Okay. Just an aside. Okay, not part of the questionnaire. Do you listen to Tool?
To Tool, like the band?
Yes, the band.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, there is a song about specifically about psychotic people called 46 in 2, and it does use
Mm.
the analogy is sort of a person, a schizoid person or a psychotic person, uh, sort of confronting his own shadow and fighting with it to.
Mm.
So I mean, if you see the Jungian charts, Jungian chart, sorry, you see that there is the self in the middle, and then there is ego, and then there's the shadow. And well, anyway, you confront your shadow, and your ego sort of merges with yourself, so that they're the same.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
I can
whole
see that.
song is a very intense track
It's called
about.
46 and 2.
It's called
Is that right?
46 into, yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
uh you'd love the song. I mean, you'd really relate with it. If I mean, you just mentioned Jung, so I thought maybe I should just tell you.
Cool.
uh
Yeah, I just wrote that down. Thanks.
all right. So, well, okay. So yeah, another interesting thing about your answer was, uh, I would expect them to not put me in a mental institution, but a place where the psychological healthy people. So I'll give you a hypothetical exercise. Okay, you are in your psychotic state. You're put in a place, where there are psychological healthy people. What kind of attributes would you want in the people, the psychological healthy people, so as to discuss with them, talk to them while you're in your psychotic state? Like, what kind of, should they be spiritual? Should they be, like interested in psychology? Should they be any, like,
Okay.
dominant? What kind of people do you?
Um, I think both a dominant and submissive kind of people would be helpful for me. Dominant people might be able to tell me what is false about my like beliefs,
Right.
and a more submissive person might be able to listen to me where I'm able to like speak to them and tell them what's going on inside of me. Um, I feel like there's something else too. Um, I feel like having having people who are focused on goals and helping me achieve goals would be beneficial to give me a sense of progress. And that
Right.
sense of progress seems important in general, not just in
Okay.
psychosis.
Okay. All right, moving on. Uh, do you? Well, these are a lot of questions. Okay, I will just ask the question. Do you think the medical professional should respect our agency? And what, according to you, is an ideal patient psychologist or patient psychiatric relationship for a psychotic person?
Okay. Should they respect our agency? Um, so it's like two different answers. One answer is in the psychotic state, I would hate them to um, block me from doing things. But looking back on it, I think them like keeping me in a location is beneficial so that I can stabilize. And then can you repeat the second part of the question?
Uh, what according to you is an ideal patient psychologist or patient psychiatrist relationship
Ideal relationship.
for
Okay.
a psychotic person, of course?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Um, I think the ideal relationship is one where I am not at all in any way sexually attracted to them, and one where it's more of a friendship.
Right. So are you a cis heterosexual person? Like, are you attracted to females?
Yeah, I'm attracted to females. Yep.
So would you not want a female psychologist, or just a very old one, or somebody you're not sexually attracted to?
Yeah, I'd like if they were an older woman, I probably wouldn't be sexually attracted to them. But if they were
Right.
like my age or plus or minus like 10 years, it would
Right.
just probably be a bad idea.
Right.
So like a
Okay.
man
Uh,
would be good.
yeah, but it's okay. I'm going to throw a little bit of jargon, but I'll also tell you what it means. So,
Okay.
transference is something that happens in therapy, where you you do project, if you have, say, a lot of angst against your father, and when you're sitting with your therapist, you project the father's projection onto the therapist, and you know just unload. But
Yeah.
in order to help transference, the fact that you are sexually attracted to them sort of encourages expression and sharing. uh
Hmm.
but again, the fact that you're saying it should not be the case is, I mean, it's different, to say the least. And why do you say you should not be sexually attracted to them? Like, it does encourage you to share a lot with them and talk about your ideas more.
Hmm. Um, that's an interesting aspect that I hadn't thought about. But so why do I think sexual attraction should not be there?
Yeah.
Um, I was attracted to one of my therapists. Um, After my first psychotic experience, I went to go see a therapist, and I was attracted to them. And I think the fact that I was attracted to them made me like think about wanting to like ask them out or do like romantic activities with them as opposed to focusing on my own self.
Okay. All right. Do you do you feel your symptoms have meaning? And were the psychotic episodes also something you were seeking, or an unsavory part of understanding symptoms? Anyway, it's a difficult question. I'll simplify it.
Okay.
Do you think your symptoms had a sort of meaning beyond just being symptoms? Like, do you think there was a reason why you were having, so say, auditory hallucinations or delusions? There's a reason behind the underlying psychological problem that you need to address, or do you think they're devoid of meaning, and like you should just get rid of them and get better?
When I was in psychosis, I would see meaning in everything. I would see meaning in numbers. I would see meaning in colors. I would see meaning in patterns of seeing colors and numbers or meanings inside of my own thoughts. So there was meaning everywhere. And can you repeat the question so I make sure I'm on the right track?
uh Again, do you feel your symptoms have meaning? And uh yeah, I mean, that's it.
Okay.
That's a simple part of way of putting it.
Okay. Do I think the symptoms have meaning? Um, Trying to think about that.
Okay, forget it. I'll ask you a better question. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm equipped. uh Wait, I will scroll down and find a very similar question.
Okay.
All right. So there's this very famous psychoanalyst. Uh, Again, the kind of therapy you were preferring was analytical psychology, Jungian's, and also it's very similar to, it came out of Freud's psychoanalysis. And there's a very
Yeah.
famous psychoanalyst in the US. I don't know where. Her name is Danielle Nefo, and this is what she had to say about psychosis. And it's also something Dr. R.D. Lang said in the 1960s. But I'll just say what they said, because that's what is more important. So
Okay.
many think that there is a person hidden underneath the psychosis, underneath the psychotic symptoms, that needs to come out. But according to these luminary people, the person is revealed in their psychotic symptoms and not hidden. Do you agree with the statement?
Do I think the person is revealed in the psychotic symptoms?
I want to expand a little bit. So,
Okay.
uh, do you feel the kind of person you were in your psychotic state is more closer to your real self? The way you are is a better. It's a more non bullshit Vincent, as opposed to now when you're not psychotic. So, what the psychologists were saying were that a person is
Yep.
their true
Uh,
identity is revealed in their psychosis. Where did I lose you?
yeah, my internet cut out for a second there. Sorry.
Okay. Where did you lose me?
You were talking about um, if there's a self underneath the psychosis.
Yes, similar but not the same. So what I'm trying to say is, did your true identity or real self get revealed in your psychotic state, or is it? So basically, what people say that he's going through some symptoms, and
Mm-hmm.
my so I'll talk about myself. Okay, Pulak is my name, and they would say that he has having symptoms. Pulak is a really nice, obedient person and studious guy, and he has kind of lost in this psychotic person who is now gotten lost in the symptoms. But what I feel, or what the others also feel, is that I was more Pulak in my psychotic state
Mm-hmm.
than I have ever been, and I was closer to my real self in the things that make me. I was more that in my psychosis than sort of buried under the symptoms and hidden. So
Yeah.
what do
Okay.
you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I see that the self I was prior to the psychosis was not, it was farther away from my true self than it was when I was in psychosis. And I now think that I'm currently more closer to my true self than I was in my psychosis. So it was like a level of like before psychosis, I was like up here. In psychosis, I'm like over here. And then like now I'm like closer to myself.
Right. Okay. Um, so again, Dr. Nafo says that psychosis is an attempt to adapt to a terrible reality or unfavorable circumstance. It's an attempt at making sense of unusual things happening in one's life, like a defense mechanism. To what degree do you agree with her?
Um, in a sense, I agree with it in the idea that I am generally feeling lonely in my general life, even before psychosis and in psychosis and after psychosis, I'm generally lonely. And I don't know if that loneliness impacted my vulnerability towards psychosis.
Right. Okay. There's also something else that I'm asking you here is that so a lot of people say that our delusions are devoid of any logic and are devoid of any rationality in that sense. What the doctor here is saying that you are a very rational and logical person. It's just that in psychosis you're having so many unusual experiences that psychosis is you trying to make sense out of that unusual experience, and it's you fighting to make sense out of your situation and not you starting to believe in something really absurd for no reason at all. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Um, Trying to make sense of the symptoms, is that correct?
Um, no, I'm basically saying the symptoms are not, or the delusions are not devoid of any logic. They are us trying to make sense of what is actually happening to us according to us, and it's not that we start believing in something absurd for no reason. We the belief comes after you're going through something really unusual in your surroundings.
From my experience, I think the belief came first and then the delusions happened because
Got
of
it.
the false beliefs.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll go back to the chronological order. Uh, the, do you feel medical professionals pay sufficient attention to symptoms? By that I mean, do you think they, when you say you have auditory hallucination, do you focus on the content of your auditory hallucination, or they just, see, oh, he's not making eye contact, he's making gestures, and give you medication based on that? Do they ever talk about your ideas, your hallucination, the content of your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't remember them talking about the content of my thoughts. I even remember one time asking a social worker, like, how does the social worker differentiate their own thoughts from other thoughts, if that makes sense.
Right,
So
so they did not dwell on what you were thinking. They did not pay a lot of
yeah,
attention to that.
yeah, correct.
Okay. Okay, this is something that you'll have to go back and sort of think about your psychotic experience. It's that sort of a question. Um, why do you think psychotic individuals express themselves using language that has a lot of symbolic meaning and metaphors?
Hmm,
Can you give us an example of this?
that's a big question. Why
Yeah.
do psychotic individuals use symbolic or meaning-filled language? Uh, this is a complete guess. Um, I haven't ever thought about this. My guess is that I used symbolic or meaning-filled language to express concepts that are too big for me to conceptualize simply.
All right. Another aside to this. So I was reading this paper where there was a psychotic person and there was this doctor, and both notes were sort of juxtaposed where you can read the doctor's notes and her notes. And
Mhm.
so it's description of a day from both their sides. The doctor says the patient is not compliant, she's very, fidgety, she's got a lot of energy,
Mhm.
5 notes, and she should be locked or put in isolation. The patient writes, I feel agony and pain like the burning of 1,000 suns, and the wave of despair is washing me away. Things like that. So the language was very metaphorical.
Yeah.
From my experience too, I used a lot of metaphors to talk to people and even explain myself. Now, my question is, why do we make that choice? Why are we talking in metaphors and not literally saying, oh, what we actually feel? Why do you think we use metaphors so much?
What do we use in a metaphor to explain our experience? Oh, wow. Um, I'm gonna take a second to think about
Yeah,
that.
you can take as long as you want.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not looking for the correct answer, Vincent. It's a very, it's
Yeah.
it's about
Yeah.
your life, it's about your understanding. It's not a
I'm
test at
analyzing
all.
it. Yep.
Yeah. You just, whatever
Um,
you feel intuitively is the right answer, like whatever you think is the right answer.
so I think the use of metaphors comes up because I'm trying to explain an experience for which common language doesn't do justice.
Okay.
So it's like we all speak, like, let's say we use like English
Yeah.
to speak to each other. There are
Yeah.
certain words and phrases that we generally talk about that don't exist as a concept to express in psychosis.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very concise way of putting it. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, and I
Okay.
agree with it. So again, if there is a person who does not have psychosis, how can he better understand these metaphors? Like, he does not have an insight to our condition. So how does he better understand what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I think um, using dream interpretation, like in your own life, could then help you apply that same type of interpretive stance with someone in psychosis expressing themselves symbolically.
Right. No, that's a very specific way of going about it, Vincent. Um, all right. So, are you in? Do you have psychosis right now, or how long has it been since you've been psychotic?
Yeah. So my first psychosis was in March of 2018. My last psychosis was in March of 2019. So it's been almost 2 years.
And you discontinued medication after 2019 on your own, and since then you haven't been on medication.
Correct. Yep.
Have there been any relapses in terms of you going back into psychosis in this, like a long term thing, not for a week or
No.
so, but no, just
No.
there hasn't been. Okay.
There's so like I do this thing where sometimes I'll make up words that don't exist in the English language for patterns of thoughts.
Right.
Um, Sometimes I'll get those patterns of thoughts and then I'll label it and then it just will go away. And so
Right.
it'll happen once every few months and then it'll stop. So yeah.
Yeah, that brings back a very specific memory in my case. Wow, I actually, you know what? So I did make up a word for. Okay, I can tell you this. There was a universal billboard. Okay, that was. I mean, I could see that billboard, and it would, well, relay important messages to the world and me, and those messages were
Mm.
coming from me, and I had given it a name, and I don't remember what it's called. Earlier, when I was scared that I'm gonna go back into psychosis if I just remember the name, I would stop myself from not trying to remember. But now I genuinely cannot remember what I used to call it. It was a really funky, like I'm a musician, and it
Yeah.
was a funky name, and I could
Yeah.
use it in a song or two, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was, man. Okay.
Hmm.
All right, moving on. Can Okay, can you draw parallels between, uh, uh say, a bad trip on pot or hash and psychosis? Can you draw parallels between getting high on weed, not a bad trip necessarily, but
Mm.
getting high on weed and uh, being psychotic? Are there similar experiences according to you?
Um, I can see behavioral similarities. Like if I was smoking weed, I might act differently. I might start cleaning things more. I might start um, posting more things on Reddit. I might start conversating more with people. And in psychosis, I might do those things. I might clean. I might post on Reddit. I might talk to people more. So I can see behavioral similarities.
Right, but in terms of you experiencing those two things, are they very different experiences?
The experience itself. Yes, I feel like they're different things.
Yeah, how tell me how, Vincent.
Okay, yeah. So when I would smoke weed, I would feel a kind of uplifting experience. It's like it's like I'm separated from my sense of ego in a sense, my sense of better than others. Whereas in my psychosis, I would see myself as better than others.
Okay. So what you're saying is when you're smoking up, when you're high, you are more sociable, you're more relaxed, and not thinking, not egocentric in that sense that I'm better than
Yeah,
others, and you're trying to enjoy, and it's a very relaxed and fun sort of a thing. Whereas in psychosis, even though it's behaviorally just the same, it's not fun, and it's not. It's more egocentric, and it's more. Uh, Maybe it's not as relaxed as it is when you get high.
yeah, it's not as relaxed. Hmm.
Okay. All right. So we have come to the question where I am going to ask you to give a detailed account of your first psychotic breakdown. And if you're okay with it, I mean, if you're not, we can skip this question.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So yeah, can you give an account of your
Oh,
first
okay.
psychotic?
I thought you were gonna go somewhere. Um,
No.
yeah, can I give an account of my first psychosis
Yeah,
experience? Is that
how
the
did it
question?
happen before the psychosis? How did it happen, and you know, how
Okay.
did it go through basically? Yeah.
So, um, I guess the starting point of the psychosis was like a few days before my diagnosis. Um, so a few days before, I was hanging out with friends, and then I just wouldn't get much sleep at night. I slept maybe few hours at most, and then like that kept happening for the next 2 or 3 days. I just got maybe 8 hours of sleep total in 3 days. Um, and then the day of psychosis, it was like at maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. I was awake thinking about things. I remember thinking about how the people on Reddit were created by me, um, to serve me. And I also remember at maybe 10 o'clock that night, maybe, so this was like 3 hours before the delusion. Um, I had seen a hallucination. It was like, you know what a phosphene is? When you look at the sun
Yeah, yeah.
for a little bit and then you look away, it's kind of like that shimmery thing.
Yes.
I saw that in my bed. I wasn't looking at any light. It just appeared and it was static. Like it would stay in one spot regardless of where I looked. Whereas a phosphene would like follow your
Follow
line of
your
sight.
eyes, yeah.
Yeah. I had that hallucination the night before my psychosis. Um, there were probably other thoughts, but I can't remember them too well. So that was like pre-psychosis, and then in psychosis, I was at work, and there was a point at which, um, I kind of had a language interpretation switch. Like if someone told me, "Hey, the project for this assignment is due in March," I would interpret that as being, okay, the end of the world is now going to end in March. Like he would tell me the physical words of the project is changing, but I would interpret that completely differently. And that happened all the time in that few hour span while I was at work. And then eventually I just thought I need to leave because like I'm in a video game or I'm in a story and I can do whatever I want because I'm just in a story and it doesn't matter. And I just left work in the middle of the day. Um, I left work. I went to, so like there's a lot of details in here,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
want you to be more
I tell it
more
different every time. So
okay.
like in videos I've made, it might come out differently because there's just so much and I remember different things each time.
Right.
But so I went to a mall to see a friend I was recently friends with and asked her to come with me. But she denied, of course, because it was like, why would you leave? Why would you leave work to just go on an adventure?
Yeah.
Um, and I remember seeing a lot of kids at the mall, probably because it was like there was also an aquarium at the mall, and like you take your kids to an aquarium. But I thought, since I'm seeing all these children, I must secretly have a child with the girl I first had sex with. So I like left the mall and went to go home and tell my parents that I have a kid. And they're like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital. And so I'm like, no, I don't need to go. I'm okay. They're like, no, you need to go. I'm like, okay, let's go, whatever. And so I went to the hospital. Um, we had to wait like an hour or so before I could actually be seen by anyone.
Yeah.
And I was just walking around the hospital lobby area. I remember one time there was I think it was like an imaging technician walked up to um, like a front desk clerk and like dropped off some paperwork and like meowed at the person. Like that was code for his cat scan. But at the time I thought, whoa, what's going on? Like they're meowing just randomly.
Right.
And then I woofed at them. I didn't know what was going on. So
Right.
yeah, that was weird. I remember one time a guy called a name to like be seen by the next doctor or whatever, and like no one spoke up. So like I said the name louder so maybe someone could hear them, and I don't know why I did that, but I remember doing that. And then I finally get into the hospital, um, like like not at the front lobby, but like going to see people. And I'm like in a bed, and it's really dreamlike at this point. I remember having thoughts that just made no sense looking back on it. Like I remember one time I had thoughts, I experienced thoughts that indicated to keep looking at the light, like the saline light at the front, because then I could hold the light and keep the thoughts good. Um, I also remember having thoughts that when I go to sleep that night, I'm going to wake up in a different body, like a completely different body altogether. Um, I also remember thoughts that, so like I have a floater in my left eye, I thought that the floater disappeared when I went to the bathroom. Like I thought it went into the toilet. Um, I also remember like my parents were there with me. My mom wanted to give me a uh like turkey sandwich, and I said no, that's me, indicating that the meat on the turkey sandwich was the same meat as myself. Um, yeah, and I remember one time I hid under the covers in a bed in the hospital. Like the hospital was like overbooked, and so they had to put beds in the hallway. And I was just hiding under the covers, and then like a doctor came by, and I thought that the doctor was one of my coworkers just in another body. Like this is proof that I'm gonna wake up in another body because this doctor that's coming by, that's my coworker.
Right.
Um, and the doctor like saw me, and I think that was the doctor that eventually gave me the psychosis diagnosis. Um, but then I try to go to sleep. I go to sleep for like maybe a few hours, and then I get shuttled off to a psychiatric ward from the hospital,
Right.
and I'm still kind of in psychosis. I'm still having thoughts that are like way out there. Like this psychosis experience lasted for a few days. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so like I get to the ward, and I think like when I get to the ward, I think that I'm like an undercover agent sent there to help people instead of like a psychotic patient like needing help.
Yeah.
So I thought I was the one that was giving people help, and it was at night at this point, and they put me in a room with some other people. There was like four people in a room, and I was one of them. And I eventually go to sleep. I think I'm pretty sure I go to sleep at the first night. And they also, before I went to sleep, they confiscated some items that I had in my pockets. Like I had a pocket knife, and like my boots had shoestrings on them, so they just took my boots.
Right.
And so I go to sleep, and then I wake up, and I don't remember too much of this. I think I remember having to sign some papers because like I had to take some medication, so I needed to sign something.
Right.
The medication that I was prescribed was like I think it was olanzapine, which is also known as Zyprexa. I don't remember the dosage at all,
Right.
but I remember taking it some days, and some days I wouldn't. Um, so I also remember I think it was that that same day I they brought out like a little trolley with like coffee on it, like in a big like cooler kind of thing. So I got some coffee, and then I when I got the coffee, I remembered a an episode of Dragon Ball Super. It's an anime, if
I
you've ever
know.
heard of that.
I know what it is.
Okay. It was like the anime was like ongoing at the time, but I remember the main character Goku, he went into what was it?
Spirit realm.
No, what was the special thing? It's like he gets a white aura. Um, let me just Google it really quick. Ultra Instinct. So like the
Yeah.
character in the show got a power up where he was like able to do a bunch of things.
Right.
Like he would be able to dodge instantly or punch people instantly. I thought I was in that mode of like Ultra Instinct. And I remember in the anime, the voice actor like did a weird kind of breath, like a kind of breath. Um, and so I did that like with the coffee, like I breathed in the coffee,
Right.
um, because I thought I was in that state. This is kind of like going back to how I thought I was like in a good state of mind at the time.
Right.
But looking back, I see like, no, it's probably not happening
Right.
in the way I thought it was. Um, but then I also remember like going down to sit down at the lunch table, and the people there were like commenting on how I was acting weird. And yeah, I was acting weird. Um, and then I went to like a social work kind of gathering. At this hospital, they did like arts and crafts kind of stuff like once a day. And so we did some arts and crafts on this day. And I remember one of the social workers was like talking to me, and I thought her voice sounded like um, a customer's voice that I had spoken to at my job. So I was like, this person is like the customer's name was Ruby, and I don't remember the name of the social worker, but I thought the social worker was Ruby. And I even like I happily proclaimed that they were Ruby. Like I told the social worker that she was Ruby, and I don't remember her reaction, but I remember doing that. I also remember that social worker pointing out that another patient that had been there for a few days acted like how I acted. Um, his name was Josh. I still kind of talk to him sometimes, but Josh also was in psychosis and acted like me.
Right.
But at the time, I didn't really understand what that meant.
Right.
Um, and then I don't remember much about that first day afterwards. I think on the second day, some of these memories get mixed up sometimes, and I don't remember what days on are and what. But I
Right.
also remember during this whole hospital um, or a psychiatric stay, at one point I was like in a little relaxation room where there were a bunch of chairs, and I remember thinking that there was also like a mentally retarded person there,
Okay.
and the mentally retarded person like pushed a magazine, and I thought the fact that they pushed the magazine meant that I'm supposed to get a special code from the magazine and then do something else because of that code.
Okay.
Um, I also remember this might have been the third day. Um, I remember I was like freaking out. It might have been the second day, I don't know. I was like freaking out because like I couldn't leave, and I thought I should leave. Like I was like, okay, this place is evil, and I need to leave the evil. And there was like a set of doors, like that would swing open.
Yeah.
Those were locked, and I thought I need to leave this place, and I like couldn't open the doors to leave, and then I like freaked out some more. I tried to push on the elevator buttons, and they wouldn't go anywhere, and so I'm just like running around, and like the staff is like, yeah, we got to do something. And so eventually they brought up some like muscle or like guards or something, and they were gonna go take me to like isolation, but there was like a nurse standing there that looked like a character from a cartoon called Steven Universe. That like the nurse looked exactly like one of the characters, and I like grabbed the nurse to try to like protect myself, but I can see how like the guards were like, yeah, this person is now assaulting a nurse, and we
Okay.
need to take him. So they dragged me from the nurse and like put me in isolation, and they shot me with something. I don't know what it was. And then I just spent the night there, even though they told me like after a few hours that I could leave the isolation. I still just stayed there because I thought I was in trouble and needed to be alone. Um, and then I think on whatever day this was, I also met a guy called Spencer who was also probably in psychosis, because when I first met him, he said that he could read minds. And at the time, when I heard that he said he could read minds, I thought I need to get rid of this guy. And then as soon as I thought I need to get rid of this guy, he said, "Why did you think that?" And that freaked me out. Like that was really weird. I don't know like how that worked. Um,
Yeah.
but he kind of like chilled down too. Like he cooled off, or at least stopped being behaviorally psychotic. Um, and I remember one time we were doing like a little arts and crafts a thing, and there was Spencer next to me, and like Spencer was just like going off on like some kind of tangent. He, I don't. I was rocking back and forth because another guy was rocking back and forth, and I thought that other guy was like Jesus or something. I also thought I was Jesus too at the time, so um, I was rocking back and forth with this guy because I thought it was good, and like as Spencer's like going off about some tangent, I like just touched his shoulder, and then he just stopped talking, and it was like um, if you have you watched Star Wars at all?
Yeah.
It was like using the force on a person to like relax them. It was really a bizarre experience. I don't know why that happened or how that happened. Um, but that was weird. Um, is there anything else that I can think of? I remember another patient came in. His name was Armand, and he said he was what was it? A light worker. A light worker in the spiritual or new age community is like someone who is there to give love to the world or something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but he said he was this light worker, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy is here. He's like an angel basically.
Hmm.
Um, he probably had some issues, but I don't know what they were. Um,
Maybe he was trying to say he doesn't take his work seriously, like he's a light worker. He doesn't work like
oh,
stress
I just
himself
work
too.
lightly. Yeah.
Anyway, so sorry. Please go ahead.
Oh, it's good. That's all right. I remember one time. This is maybe the second night. I was talking to one of my roommates, and we were talking about how when we wake up, we're gonna be in the Lord of the Rings universe, and we both believed it. I'm pretty sure, or at least I believed it, and he seemed to believe it too. I also remember it was kind of like it was dark in the room, and there was light outside of the room, and the doors were open. He like was playing with a rock that I had. It was like a rock. The rock was had a rune on it because I brought in my pocket was a rune, and they let me keep it. Um, and he was like playing with the rock, and I perceived that the rock changed into a purple color, but I don't know if that was hallucination. It probably was, but it was really dark, and I couldn't see exactly what happened. But I thought that he changed the rock into something purple. Um, and I can't remember too much else. Well, no, I remember one time there was this guy who was in there because he like took a lot of meth and he was psychotic acting, and like he would it was like he was speaking out all of his thoughts. Like he could not internalize his thoughts, he could only speak them. So he would just walk around just talking whatever. And I remember one time he was like yelling something as I was like eating food, and like I had a nightgown or a hospital gown on, and as he yelled at me, I thought like, oh, I need to get on real clothes, and so I just went to get real clothes, despite the fact that he was like just speaking his own thoughts out loud.
Yeah.
Um, and
All right. I'm not gonna
yeah,
stress you further. Like we have a very detailed account, and I have a few questions which I might forget. So that's why I'm pausing you,
okay,
not even stopping you right there. Uh,
totally fine.
uh, Two questions, Vincent. One is, so while you were reeling in experiences, there are a lot of instances where you are talking in a metaphor, or uh, somebody else, uh, they respond as if they understand the intensity of your metaphor. For example, if somebody passes your magazine, you see it as a sign to sort of wait.
Yep.
I just shut my. Yeah, that you see it as a sign to act on, whereas it's just a mundane passing of a magazine, which means nothing like normally.
Yeah.
And a lot of like in other participants, and in my case as well, I would assign special significance to mundane activities. And when I came outside of my psychosis, I sort of tried to explain to myself how it was not special, or how it was
Mm,
not
yeah.
revelationary in that sense. uh like there were a lot of conversations that I've had where the other person is almost, like I asked them, oh, I basically, what I'm asking them through a metaphor is, where is the way to God? And that person said, oh yeah, yeah, just go straight and take a left. So
Mhm.
I asked them for a direction, and I in my head I'm asking him where God is, and he's like, yeah, I know where he is. You just go straight, take a left, you will meet God. Yeah. So 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 a lot of these instances where the other people are interpreting, or according to you they understand what you're saying, and they're actually adding on to that, is a lot is present in your when you relay your experience, it's also there. The question I wanted to ask you was of synchronicity. You're aware of the synchronicity thing?
Yeah, it's like when you see or at least when I saw a number and then I saw another number later on, I thought that that was like important.
Yeah. So in synchronicity, what happens is there there are a lot of coincidences that happen in from a day to on a day to day basis, and a lot of us don't pay any heed to it. But while you're in psychosis, you sort of almost make notes, and like the evidence piles on to support your delusion, and you
Yeah.
so synchronicity is basically assigning meaning to these coincidences. For example, if I'm
Yeah.
thinking of a band and I open the radio and this song from that band plays, and I'm like, oh wow, this ought to have some special meaning, but it's a coincidence
Mhm.
or it is evidence for what I'm thinking. So did you ever go back and first of all, you can give me a few examples of these synchronicity
Mhm.
activities, and the other thing is, did you ever go back and try to look at that experience
Mhm.
differently, like a significant experience, but from a different lens, almost by
Yeah.
giving it a boring, mundane effect?
So I have not looked back on the synchronicities and tried to give it a different lens, but I have had synchronetic experiences. I remember one time I was like walking to like get exercise and on the ground like I was covering one eye and then I opened one eye and then the light got more into this eye because it was covered and like a special well not special it was like a sign that had like fallen on the ground. It was just a piece of paper and it looked brighter than the surroundings. And I thought, oh, that's meaningful. And so I called the number that was on there, and the guy answered like, hello. And he's like, is this like, is this like Kevin or something? Because like apparently on his caller ID, I came up as like Kevin or something. And that was really synchronistic. Like, why did that happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, I remember there's just a hodgepodge of memories that come up when I think of looking at license plates and thinking that the numbers that I keep seeing have some important meaning for whatever thoughts I had going on at the time, even though I cannot remember what the thoughts were.
Right.
Um, I remember that's not really synchronicity. That was just me
All
choosing
right.
based on.
Don't stress yourself. I also want to, because you've relayed all your experience. I really want to give you a little bit of tell you about my experience as well, because maybe you can then relate and think of similar experiences. So,
Mhm.
and also that I haven't told you anything. It's like it's I also should um, tell you like something about myself. So basically, again, it wasn't as simple as where's the way to God and all of that. I have been a religious atheist all my life. So even before psychosis, I was an atheist and I still am. But the nature of my experiences, you can say they were spiritual. And the reason that gave myself was that, well, all these people who are religious have been wasting time praying and asking for things from God, and like uh, asking for things, not doing their work sincerely, not being hardworking. And while me, on the other hand, I have not assigned some special significance to anything, and I've been doing my work sincerely and honestly. So therefore, whatever entity there is above all of us, they have chosen me as, okay, I should reward this person because all of you been wasting time. This person hasn't been. That was my explanation for me being the
Mm.
chosen one, almost.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was in a band. Okay, I'd play guitar and write songs, and I thought, the sun comes up because I play a really cool track, or it starts
Mm.
raining because I really like killed it in one track
Mm.
that I've composed. And then I'd also feel like everybody reveres me for the information that I have. Like, I'm privy to information nobody else has. I have secrets, and people respect me for that. They revere me for that, and they're scared of me and all of that. Like, uh, so again, so the day that I
Mm.
turned psychotic was, so I was doing a lot of, I mean, we're musicians, right? So for inspiration, we do drugs. Okay, so we'd smoke up, we drink, and I did I did ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer. So you've got to buy a vial, cook it yourself, and snort it. I was doing that all by myself. I didn't involve my band members.
Mm.
And this particular night, I did a ritualistic thing where I lit candles in my room. I had my guitar amplifying, blaring. I think I was playing Kide, or maybe from Radiohead, or I was playing Echoes by Pink Floyd. I don't remember clearly. And so in ketamine, you have like a 4 to 5 hour trip where
Mm.
you can't move on anything. You can just lie down, and it takes you.
Wow.
You have outer body experiences where you can see yourself lying on the bed and things like that.
Mm.
So I did that, and well, back then we were doing really intense covers of progressive metal bands. We were covering 46 and 2, we were covering Tool, and we were also covering Rage Against the Machine, and few songs. So while we would smoke up and go into the jam room, and the experience was really out of this world, okay? Like we really felt
Mm.
connected. And because of that, I, in that ritual, what I did, and what I saw was that I really respect my drummer. And I started imagining a an early man, like a man beating on a rock, and then another early man coming and saying, "Oh, that's cool." And
Mm.
I pledge my allegiance to this person, and we're going to just express ourselves to the universe, and we don't care. Like, it's not sexual attraction or anything. It's just, I dedicate my life to this and nothing else. Like, this person is playing really cool rhythms, and I can play guitar, and like, in this world, like early man, I could sing or whatever, and I pledge allegiance to him. So the whole ritual was me binding ourselves in like barbed wire or something. I was seeing all of that. Okay.
Mm.
And when uh, uh, I, for a moment, I felt a soul entered, again, a divine being entered my body. And
Mm.
I don't dance, but I was doing a ritualistic dance almost, and not observing my body doing that. And it was, I saw a figure which is like in our mythology, he's called Ganesh. I saw that. And I don't believe, again, I didn't believe in any of that. So it was an intense experience. I was like, wait, through this whole ritual, I have attracted the attention of the people in my society.
Mm.
And of course, I'm loud and I'm shouting and I'm dancing. And something really spiritual has happened, and they've witnessed that.
Mm.
So, well, now my privacy is gone. Now they can hear my thoughts. They can
Huh.
sort of hear everything that I think of. Again, reading minds, I have no privacy. My all my private, even if I'm peeing, if I look at my private parts, they can sort of see the image, everybody, and so therefore I can't look at it. All of that. So I had a lot of instances of, like you said, the metaphorical. Again, I'd go to a hill station to chill with my friends, and because I was paranoid, they'd abandoned me. And
Mm.
so I'd walk downhill. I was walking downhill, and I met this person who, okay, I have to tell you the story properly. Okay, so this is a story. Okay, so
Okay.
I go with this friend to a hill station to smoke up, and I got paranoid after smoking hash maybe, and he was like, "Listen, if you're gonna be this like uptight and hung up, I don't want to stay with you, and you can go back." And
Mm.
maybe he was just acting out. I don't know, but I got down from the bus and I started walking downhill. Okay, and what happened was, I would I would see that cars are not moving, and I'd reach to the front of the line and I'd see there is space. And why is the car stationary? It can move. And the moment I have this realization, the car starts moving and the whole line moves. And then again, I encounter
Mm.
them ahead, and they're still still. I'm like, what kind of a like mind fuck game are they playing with me? Okay, so I
Mm.
keep doing, and I start writing in a diary. So it's like a downhill, very narrow road, and I keep encountering this, and something poetic comes in my mind, and I write it down like a verse or a poem. And again, I do that. I have a backpack, so I meet a person there who, again, felt like this person had a halo over his head or something. He was like, "Son, come sit next to me," and he was just a random dude. Okay,
Mm.
and so he's like, uh, "What are you doing here?" So I mean, I was like, yeah, I came here to chill with my friend. He was like, no, what I'm asking you is, what are you doing here? And he kept, I mean, if you keep repeating the question, it becomes more profound and profound for some reason.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
if he kept, why? If he kept just saying, why here? Why have you come here? I was like, bro, he's asking me an existential question about like, why am I here on this planet or some shit.
Yeah.
So he's like, you should go back home. And he, for no, I didn't give him any other information. I didn't, he could just
Hmm.
read me and he was like, listen, you should go back home. This is not safe for you. You should go back home. And so I got freaked
Hmm.
out, man. I went back home.
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, I mean, all of these synchronicities and metaphor, other people not understanding the intensity of what I'm saying, the gravity of what I mean, but responding in a way that I feel okay, they understand and following it. All of that
Hmm.
happen. Okay, let's move on, man.
Yeah.
All right. So most psychotic people put a lot of emphasis on their first psychotic breakdown. Did you also do that? Do you still do? And do you remember a point
Hmm.
in time uh, that changed everything? Like the exact point where you became psychotic and it changed everything. There are a lot of questions. Okay, let's take this part by part.
Okay.
So a lot of psychotic people put a lot of emphasis on their first psychotic breakdown. Did you also do that?
Yeah, I put a lot of emphasis on my first psychotic breakdowns as opposed to the other ones that came afterwards.
And you still do?
Yeah, I think that is the first one is the most important and the last one is the second most important.
Okay. And you don't need to answer this, but you have already mentioned the exact point where everything changed, like 1 a.m. when you were awake and thinking about that is the exact point where the switch happened, like you from a non-psychotic person to a psychotic person.
No, I think the switch happened at work when I left work
Okay.
is when that psychotic break happened.
All right. So now we're gonna talk about the wait. How much time do you have, Vincent? I'm such an idiot. How much time do you have?
I have the day off, so I'm good for a while.
Okay. So maybe we'll do
Yeah.
this for another half an hour and then I'll give you a break.
Okay.
Break. I mean, we'll end this. Not a break. Like I'm not gonna call you up again. This we'll do
Okay.
this another time. And Fridays work, man. Like if this is good for you, we can do another Friday.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, cool. Uh, what kind of hallucinations did you experience? Auditory, visual, or olfactory, and do they also happen together?
I only had one visual hallucination, which was the phosphine thing in my bed. It was mostly auditory. It was like it wasn't hearing voices like one would hear your voice or you would hear my voice. It was hearing voices in the sense that they were thoughts that I believed were not my thoughts. It's like they were my thoughts looking back on it, but in the moment, I thought the thoughts that I was experiencing were messages from angels as opposed to my own thoughts.
And- Okay. What about smell, touch? Did you feel any of those? Like somebody's
Um,
on your body and you're not able to move or things like that? Did that happen?
uh, I want to say near around the last psychosis experience, I had a smell hallucination where I could smell things better or taste things better. But it was more like an augmentation as opposed to smelling and tasting things that weren't there. It was like I was literally eating something, but it tasted better.
Right.
Um, as for touch, I'm not. I don't have any memories of touch hallucinations.
Maybe things, everything gets heightened in psychosis. Like even the thoughts you hear, even the food that you or it's
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Did you just hear, again, this is how it is worded. Did you just hear voices or were there non-verbal auditory hallucinations as well, like musical loops, barking of dogs, clicking, murmuring, etc.?
Um, non-language stuff. I had images in my mind, but that's like just the imagination. Well, I don't know if the word just is appropriate, but it was imaginatory in nature. So like I might imagine characters that I've seen in cartoons or anime, but there were no um like clicks or bark like dark dogs wolfing, nothing non-language based.
Like a murmur of a crowd. Did you hear that? Chatter.
Um I don't I don't remember anything like that. No.
Okay. So, um, but you said something that I want to. Yeah, when you say you were seeing anime characters, were they did they merge seamlessly with, like, was it like a visual hallucination that you're seeing them, or was it like you can distinguish that this is something that I'm imagining and this is reality?
Um it's so like I would not see the imaginations occur in the physical reality. The way my imagination works in conjunction with my physical sight is that it's not so much like I'm shutting off the sight that I'm seeing in the physical world. It's more like my attention goes from the physical world into my imagination. And then while I was in psychosis, I thought that the conjunction between my imagination and the physical world was seamless in the sense that not that I could see my imagination in the physical world, but more like the imagination um, was the more important thing to focus on. Like in my daily life, I would focus on physical stuff primarily,
Right.
and then I would go to my imagination secondarily. In psychosis, my primary point of reference was my imagination. The secondary point of reference was the physical reality.
That's really well put, man, Vincent. That's really well put. Um,
Thanks.
it's like a mental image that it's mental imagery as instead of, so for example, if I draw something on my lenses, and I'm seeing through my lens, I know this is on my lens and that is reality, but I'm trying, like, choosing to focus on the on what is drawn here, and then more so in my psychosis than uh,
That makes
the
sense. Yeah.
outside world.
Yep. That
Yeah, but
makes
that's
sense.
really well put, because I mean I have had the same experience, but I didn't see it like that. I mean, and I now I do, and I think it's a better way to put it. Yeah. Uh, all right, we're moving really fast with you, and it's really cool. So I'm on the 16th question, and I asked you two more from randomly somewhere. So I think you've done 18. Wait, can you give me a second, Vincent?
Yeah. Go for it.
Let me just mark the questions that I've asked you, otherwise I'll ask you again. All right, so this is the last question for today. Uh, do you think it requires a lot of brain computation to keep track of your delusions and auditory hallucinations? And do you think they're devoid of any logic?
I think it does take a lot of logical processing to understand my delusions in the psychosis and also looking back on it. And then what was the second part?
Do you think they're, again, devoid of any logic? Or,
Devoid of any logic. Um, I
I
don't think
mean,
it's devoid
if
of logic.
even if the logic is flawed, the logic is still there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not. It might not be the logic, which, I mean, it not be rational in that sense, but it's still a logic that you're applying, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, man. We've done 18 questions and 43. I think we can. How many sessions can we do? Because if we do it lightly and, we take our own time, we can do it in three
Mm.
easily. But if you don't have time and we can only do two sessions, I can cram it up into two as well.
Nope. I can do three. Um, Fridays, like generally, I take the day off, like don't do much. So Fridays work like at any time, pretty much between like or pretty much 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. is when I would end it, Eastern time. So big
Mm.
time zone there.
Right. All right, man. Now I'm gonna ask you this. like random, not an interview question, but just
Yeah.
why do you wake up at 3:30 in the morning? That's really fucking with me, man.
Well, so I work at 5 a.m. and so I wake up at 3:30 to take a shower, do a meditation and do stretching, and then I go to work.
Okay. Why do you go to work at 5 a.m.? What is it that you do?
Yeah, I work in IT, so like I take calls and answer emails. It's a 24-hour service desk, so someone has to be there every hour of the day, and my shift starts at 5 a.m. and then the night guy leaves at 5 a.m. So
When does it end?
my shift ends at 2 p.m. So from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And when do you sleep?
I go to sleep generally at about 8 o'clock, and then I wake up at the 3:30.
Okay. Oh, so you're sleeping early.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you have like sleep like trouble going to sleep at 8, or is it like now you have a routine and you can sleep easily at 8?
Yeah, it's a routine, and I just easily go to sleep at 8. I often wake up, but then I often go back to sleep right away. So
Okay. Wow, that's well, because a lot of the IT stuff is outsourced here where I stay in India.
mm,
And we have really weird IT timings, like tech support and all.
yeah,
And there are a lot of jokes in like South Park and like the stereotypical Indian guy in Simpsons and all of that. But yeah, we do have that accent, but the time is also really weird, man. Like 12 to 4 or 12 to 5, midnight
yeah,
to 3. And so I thought, well, why are you working like us, man? You should, if you're doing that, you should just come here. Like you should get to work at normal times. I mean, we're making a sacrifice so that somebody can,
yeah.
just
Well,
kidding, man. Just fooling around. It's great talking to you, man. I hope
yeah.
we can get together again. If there's anything you want to ask me, you can. And I should just stop the recording.